one moment of rage, one act of vengeance. That's all it took to turn years of resentment into horror. These weren't random crimes. They were deliberate, personal, and born from pain that had been building for far too long. In each of these stories, anger became something else entirely, something unstoppable. Once it started, there was no turning back. It was March 15th, 2016, when an ordinary Monday afternoon turned deadly inside a warehouse in the Midwest. For months, the air in that building had been thick with tension. The workers spoke in low voices, careful not to draw attention from the man who ran the floor like a tyrant, Clint Harrison, a 34-year-old supervisor who believed fear was the most effective form of management. He was tall, loud, and cruel, the kind of man who enjoyed reminding others who was in charge. His main target had become Martin Webb, a 28-year-old forklift operator and father of one, with another child on the way. Martin was quiet, reliable, and proud of his spotless safety record. But none of that mattered to Clint. Over 6 months, Clint had written Martin up for minor mistakes: a late lunch clock-in, a misplaced box, and a small dent in a shipping container. Everyone in the warehouse knew what Clint was doing, but fear silenced them. That afternoon, Clint's rage flared again. He'd found a small paperwork error in Martin's daily report and decided to make an example of him. He shouted across the floor, calling Martin useless in front of the entire shift. The laughter from a few nervous co-workers echoed through the aisles. When the shift ended, Martin tried to slip away quietly, but Clint wasn't finished. He followed him to the loading dock, his boots slamming against the concrete with each step. There, away from witnesses, Clint cornered Martin and unleashed another stream of insults. He called him a failure, a burden, a man whose own family would be better off without him. Months of humiliation, anger, and fear collided at once. His legs twitched once, then went still. The room felt impossibly quiet. When help arrived, it was too late. The blow had crushed Clint's skull, killing him in less than 2 minutes. Witness accounts and context led to a voluntary manslaughter conviction, 12 years. The judge saw it as a man pushed too far. Martin got 12 years, but the rest of his life carried the heavier sentence, knowing he had crossed a line he could never come back from. 2 years later, in another quiet suburb, another story of vengeance would unfold. It was October 14th, 2018, and the Mitchell family had been living under siege, not from strangers, but from the woman next door. Sarah Mitchell, a 34-year-old mother of 2, had spent 3 years enduring torment from her neighbor, Tessa Monroe. What started as noise complaints had turned into something darker: harassment, false police reports, and even threats to take Sarah's children away. Tessa, 41, was bitter and alone. A recent divorce had left her angry at the world, and she found an easy target in the cheerful family living next door. She called child services with false claims of abuse, left repeated complaints, and created disturbances around the home. Each time, she denied everything, smiling smugly from her porch as Sarah tried to hold her life together. Then, one winter night, Tessa crossed an unthinkable line. She poisoned the family's golden retriever, Max, by pouring antifreeze into his water bowl. Max barely survived after thousands in vet bills. Sarah's children were terrified of their own backyard. Still, the police said there wasn't enough proof. That Sunday, the air was crisp, leaves swirling across the lawn as Sarah tended her garden. Her daughter Emma laughed from the swing set, that innocent laughter that had somehow become the source of Tessa's fury. The neighbor stormed out of her house, still in her security uniform, eyes bloodshot from drink and rage. She started screaming, accusing Emma of ruining her day, threatening to call the police again. Sarah told her to stop. Tessa got closer, her voice growing louder until she was inches away, shouting obscenities and pointing in Sarah's face. Then Tessa turned the garden hose on them, soaking Sarah and her little girl with ice-cold water. Emma screamed in terror. Sarah saw red. She shoved Tessa away. It wasn't hard, just instinct, but Tessa stumbled, her boots slipping on wet concrete. She fell backward and hit her head on the edge of the driveway. The sound was horrifying. Blood spread beneath her hair as her body began to convulse. Sarah froze, horrified. But instead of calling 911 immediately, she carried her crying daughter inside and locked the door. She told herself she needed a minute to think. 15 minutes later, she called, claiming she had just found her neighbor collapsed. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but the delay had sealed Tessa's fate. Brain swelling could have been treated if help had come sooner. Investigators examined the incident. Experts noted the delay likely proved fatal. For years, Sarah had endured hell. That day, she let her anger take control, and in doing so, she became the very thing she feared. A year before that, revenge took a more calculated form in the halls of academia. It was November 18th, 2017, when the rivalry between two university students reached its deadly end. Bryce Chandler was 19, brilliant, charming, and born into wealth. His roommate, Amanda Torres, was 20, a scholarship student who juggled two part-time jobs to survive. To everyone else, they were just roommates, two bright young minds with different backgrounds. But beneath the surface, envy had taken root. Amanda watched Bryce glide through life with effortless grace. While she studied until 3 a.m. for a B, he aced every exam after a single night of review. He had nice clothes, expensive cologne, a car worth more than her family's house, and a girlfriend who adored him. Amanda, on the other hand, scraped by, reusing notebooks and skipping meals to save money. Every day she saw in Bryce a reflection of everything she'd been denied. When she learned about his severe peanut allergy, something he kept secret to avoid embarrassment, a dark idea formed. She began with small experiments. She rubbed traces of peanut residue on his pillow, his face cream, and even his lip balm. Bryce developed rashes, breathing trouble, and fatigue, but he never suspected her. He thought it was stress. Then finals week arrived, and with it, Amanda's chance. She offered Bryce a smoothie, a kind gesture from an unlikely friend. What he didn't know was that the blender had been coated with peanut butter hours earlier. He drank it all. Minutes later, his throat began to close. He staggered to his desk, gasping for breath, searching desperately for his EpiPen, but it wasn't there. Amanda had hidden it. He looked to her, eyes wide, silently begging for help. She didn't move. She sat at her desk, pen in hand, pretending to study as he fell to the floor, clawing at his throat. His breathing slowed. His lips turned blue. The room went silent. Only when he stopped moving did she call 911, feigning panic. Bryce was pronounced dead from anaphylactic shock. At first, investigators believed it was a tragic accident until they found Amanda's internet history. Her search records revealed everything: how to trigger allergic reactions, how much residue it took to kill, how to make it look accidental. Her motive was simple and chilling: envy, the desire to destroy someone who had everything she never could. But perhaps the most devastating story came on December 25th, 2018. A night for joy became a night of blood and ruin. Inside a sprawling mansion lit by Christmas lights, 67-year-old Lana Whitfield, the matriarch of a wealthy family, sat at the head of her long dining table. For years, she had ruled her children with money and manipulation. She promised inheritance, then took it away, again and again. Her youngest son, David, had suffered the most. At 42, he'd given up everything: his job, his apartment, his dreams, to care for her. He cooked her meals, managed her medications, and listened to her endless criticism. Each time he thought she might show gratitude, she reminded him that without her, he was nothing. That Christmas dinner began like every other, polite smiles hiding bitterness. Then, between courses, Lana made her announcement. She had rewritten her will. Every cent would go to charity. None of her children would get a dime. The room froze. David's heart pounded. His hands shook as his mother's words cut through him. She called him a failure in front of everyone, said he'd wasted his life, that she'd never been proud of him. Then she slapped him hard. The sound echoed through the dining room. Something in David broke. He grabbed a heavy crystal vase and swung. The vase shattered on impact, fragments flying across the table. Lana collapsed to the floor, blood mixing with the broken glass. The children screamed. Holiday lights flickered in the reflection of the spilled wine. When paramedics arrived, Lana was gone. 4 stories. 4 lives consumed by vengeance. In each, anger began as a whisper, a quiet resentment that grew until it became unstoppable. These weren't monsters. They were ordinary people who let hate take over. And when it did, it left nothing but silence, blood, and regret. Thanks for reading. Want to see more? Click on your screen now.